All right, so Halloween's coming up, and you're thinking about checking out DANDADAN.
Sounds like a good plan.
This review I read has me super hyped about it,
Mm.
especially since it talks about how the show blends horror and humor.
Yeah, definitely perfect for the spooky season, right?
Big time.
Yeah.
So ghosts, aliens, and all sorts of weirdness, huh?
It seems like it hits that sweet spot for sure. And you know what's really cool?
What's that?
It takes that classic horror setup, teenagers obsessed with the paranormal, but throws in this hilarious opposites attract dynamic.
I'm intrigued.
Tell me more.
Okay, so we got Momo. She's all in on ghosts,
Okay.
but aliens, absolutely not. Then there's Okarun, who's totally into extraterrestrial life,
Mhm.
but thinks ghosts are a joke.
Haha. I can already imagine the banter.
Oh, for sure.
But it sounds like things get really interesting when they try to prove each other wrong. Like their attempts backfire big time.
Yeah, there's a curse
A
involved.
curse.
A curse that makes them have to deal with both ghosts and aliens.
Oh no.
I know, right? It's like they're asking for trouble. That's where the real fun begins, I bet.
Exactly. And the review made a point of saying that this isn't just about jump scares.
Oh.
Yeah, it uses atmosphere, creature design, and plot twists to build genuine tension.
Interesting.
Plus, it explores all different kinds of horror.
Okay, so we're not just talking about your run-of-the-mill ghosts and aliens.
Definitely not. Like, there's this one scene where Momo and Okarun encounter this seriously creepy alien. It's described as this grotesque, spider-like thing with glowing red eyes in an abandoned building.
Ugh, that sounds terrifying.
Oh, it's supposed to be. But they also have to deal with yokai.
Yokai.
You know those eerie Japanese spirits from folklore.
I'm already picturing some creepy designs. Speaking of designs, the review also mentioned how the animation style is super slick and fast-paced.
Oh yeah, the animation is incredible, and it does a lot more than just look cool.
Oh.
Well, it really plays a crucial role in bringing the horror to life. You've got dynamic action sequences, vivid color palettes that create this unsettling atmosphere, and subtle details like shadows and lighting that make everything feel extra eerie.
So they're really pushing the boundaries with the visuals.
Oh, absolutely.
It sounds like they're going all out to make those supernatural elements pop on screen.
Exactly. And it all pays off when it comes to those intense action scenes. Imagine Momo, who the review describes as fierce and outspoken, and Okarun, who's this quirky and resilient tech geek, battling these creatures with a mix of supernatural abilities and martial arts moves.
Sounds like a force to be reckoned with, but it can't be all scares and fights, right?
All right?
The review mentioned that Momo and Okarun are really likable characters,
Yeah.
which makes me think there's more to them than just fighting monsters.
Definitely, DANDADAN doesn't shy away from showing their flaws either.
So they're not just these perfect, invincible heroes.
Nope. They make mistakes, get scared, and actually learn from their experiences.
That makes them way more relatable.
Exactly, and their friendship grows throughout the series. The review even hints at a possible romance.
Oh, interesting.
So there's this emotional depth alongside all this supernatural chaos.
That's cool. So we've got spooky creatures, awesome action, and characters you can connect with. But you mentioned something about humor earlier.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even when things get creepy, a little humor can make it all the more enjoyable.
Totally agree. And based on the review, DANDADAN nails it.
In what way?
The humor is well-timed and doesn't undermine the scary moments at all. It actually makes those moments hit even harder.
I can see that. It's like that feeling of relief you get when you laugh after being scared, right?
Exactly. And the humor comes from all sorts of places. Momo and Okarun's clashing personalities, their reactions to the crazy situations they're in, and the witty dialogue.
Feels like a good balance.
It's never forced or out of place.
Good to know. So it sounds like DANDADAN blends horror, action, humor, and even some heartfelt character moments.
It does.
I know you mentioned the review said it was well received.
Yeah, it's been a huge hit with both audiences and critics.
Wow, that's great.
People are praising its originality and fresh take on horror.
That's promising.
They also love that it avoids all those tired tropes you often see in anime.
Yeah, that's always a good sign. So to recap, it sounds like you're thinking DANDADAN might be the perfect Halloween anime.
It's definitely worth a watch, especially for anyone who enjoys horror, humor, and engaging characters.
Right.
Plus, the animation style alone is a visual treat.
Okay, so far, so good. We've got a good understanding of the basics, but I'm curious to dig a little deeper, you know?
Sure, what are you thinking?
This whole thing about yokai, those Japanese spirits, has me really intrigued. Like, what can you tell me about them and how they fit into the horror vibe?
Well, yokai are a huge part of Japanese folklore, and they come in all shapes and sizes, Some are mischievous tricksters, others are terrifying monsters, and some are even benevolent protectors.
Whoa, so there's a whole range of them.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. And what's cool is how DANDADAN draws on all this yokai lore.
To create its own unique brand of horror.
Exactly.
So it's not just random monsters for shock value.
Mm.
They're using these creatures to explore Japanese folklore and mythology.
You got it. The review mentioned how DANDADAN likes to experiment with horror tropes, and I think that includes how they portray yokai.
I see.
So we might see some familiar yokai like kappa or oni, but with unexpected twists or powers.
Right. The review did mention something about a giant grotesque frog yokai. That definitely sounds like a twist on a classic.
Right. I wonder what other surprises they have up their sleeves.
I know. I'm curious to see what they come up with.
Well, think about it this way. Yokai are often connected to specific places, emotions, or even social anxieties.
Okay.
So DANDADAN could use those elements to create some seriously unsettling situations.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, imagine a yokai that feeds off modern-day anxieties like social media obsession or fear of missing out.
Oh my God, that's a good one.
Right. It'd be creepy on a whole new level.
Ugh. Don't even get me started on social media anxieties.
Well-
That stuff's scary enough in real life.
Uh-huh, for real.
Okay, so back to the show. The animation style was another thing that stood out in the review, especially during those action scenes.
Oh, yeah, the animation is incredible.
So what makes the action scene so special?
Well, besides the fluid movements and vivid colors we talked about, DANDADAN also uses some really dynamic camera work and perspective to ramp up the intensity.
Okay.
Like, picture this. The camera's swooping and diving through the air, following Momo and Okarun as they fight these creatures. You're basically right there in the middle of the action.
Whoa, I can almost feel it.
Right, it makes those sequences feel super immersive.
Like you're part of the fight.
Exactly. And don't forget, these characters are incredibly agile and acrobatic. The animators really emphasize their movements, so everything looks super powerful and precise.
It's not just your typical stand there and shoot energy blasts kind of fight.
No way. It's way more kinetic and exciting than that. Like a mix of martial arts and supernatural spectacle, all rendered with amazing detail.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
It's like they've thought of everything.
Right down to the character designs.
Oh yeah, the review did mention those. Something about Momo and Okarun having unique looks.
Oh, they definitely do.
Remind me what they look like again.
Well, Momo's got this bold and vibrant design. She's often wearing bright colors, which reflects her confident, outgoing personality.
That fits her ghost hunting image.
Totally. And she might even have some cool supernatural-themed accessories.
I bet she does. What about Okarun? What's his style like?
His is more understated.
How so?
Think muted colors, but with hints of his love for aliens and UFOs.
Like little details in his clothing and accessories.
Exactly.
Ah, so their looks give us clues about their personalities right away.
Right from the start.
I love that. And I'm guessing their facial expressions and body language are just as expressive.
Absolutely. The animators nailed it. You can see a whole range of emotions in their faces and movements, from terror to determination to just plain hilarious bewilderment.
That's awesome. It's, like you said before, it's about bringing those characters to life.
You said it. And those details are so important, especially when things get intense.
For sure.
Huh.
Okay, I want to switch gears a bit and talk more about the humor. You know how much I love a good laugh, even in the middle of a horror story.
Oh, absolutely.
The review made a point of saying DANDADAN balances humor and horror really well. How do they do that?
Well, I think the key is in the type of humor and the timing.
Like they don't use cheap gags.
No, it's not about that. The humor feels more organic, coming from the characters' reactions to crazy situations or their witty banter.
Those laugh-out-loud moments that just happen naturally.
Yes, and they use it strategically. Like after a really intense scene, a well-placed joke can be like a palate cleanser.
I get it, like a moment to catch your breath.
Exactly. It lets you reconnect with the characters before diving back into the horror.
That makes sense. And it sounds like it adds to the overall enjoyment of the show.
Oh, definitely. It's like a roller coaster, you know? You get those moments of exhilaration and then relief.
I love roller coasters. Okay, so it sounds like DANDADAN is more than just a horror anime.
Way more.
It's this whole experience that mixes action, humor, and even some emotional depth.
It's got it all.
You mentioned earlier that the show was well received by critics.
Oh, yeah, they loved it.
What do they say about it?
They praised its originality, the fresh take on horror, and how it avoids cliches. They also raved about the animation, especially those action sequences and creature designs.
So this isn't just another generic monster show.
Not at all. It takes those familiar elements, ghosts, aliens, curses, but blends them in a way that feels both familiar and completely new.
I like that a lot.
Yeah,
So basically, from what we've discussed, it sounds like DANDADAN is a must-watch for Halloween.
definitely. Especially if you enjoy a good mix of scares, laughs, and heartwarming moments.
What else can you tell me about it that might convince someone who's still unsure?
Hmm. Well, I think one of the most compelling things about DANDADAN is its message.
Message.
It's about facing your fears and finding strength in unexpected places, you know?
Oh,
Like Momo and Okarun are always running into these terrifying situations,
right.
but they never give up.
That's inspiring.
Yeah.
It's like those classic horror movies that are about more than just monsters.
Exactly. They tap into something deeper about human nature.
I love those kinds of movies.
Me too. And DANDADAN goes a step further by highlighting how important connection is and how we find strength in others.
I see.
Momo and Okarun have such different beliefs,
Right.
but they learn to rely on each other, and that bond becomes their greatest weapon.
That's a really powerful message. So DANDADAN is not just a spooky adventure. It's a story about courage, friendship, and facing your fears.
With a healthy dose of humor and incredible animation, of course.
Of course. Okay, so we've gone pretty deep on DANDADAN today, covering the plot, characters, animation, the whole deal,
I think I've given our listeners a pretty good overview.
for sure. But there's one thing I'm still wondering about. Remember how we talked about DANDADAN blending genres and having all those unexpected creature designs?
Yeah, the possibilities are endless with this show.
Exactly. So let's play a little game here. If you could dream up the most unexpected yokai creature for DANDADAN, what would it be?
Oh, that's a tough one. There are so many cool yokai out there.
I know, right?
Let me think. Okay, how about a yokai that's completely obsessed with technology? Ooh, a tech-savvy yokai. That's a good one.
Maybe like a Tsukumogami?
A Tsukumogami.
You know those spirits that inhabit objects?
Right, right.
So instead of possessing like a traditional item,
Hmm.
this one has taken over a smartphone or a gaming console.
Oh my gosh, that's perfect. Momo and Okarun trying to fight a monster that's controlling all the electronics around them. Imagine it sending creepy texts or even hacking into the school's PA system to play spooky music.
Haha, yeah, that'd be awesome. It'd be a perfect blend of classic yokai lore and those modern anxieties we were talking about. Totally. And the humor potential is off the charts. Momo trying to reason with a yokai that's complaining about slow Wi-Fi, or Okarun trying to outsmart a creature that's more tech-savvy than he is.
I can already see it.
Okay, you've officially won the most unexpected yokai award.
Haha, thanks.
But seriously, that idea actually highlights something really interesting about the show. It's not just about showcasing scary monsters, it's about using them to explore deeper themes.
Yeah, like a way of commenting on society and our anxieties.
Exactly. It's like holding up a mirror to ourselves, but with this cool supernatural twist.
I like that.
And that ties into the whole genre bending thing we were talking about.
Right, it's got that classic horror anime vibe, but then it brings in sci-fi with the aliens.
And even some slice of life stuff with Momo and Okarun's friendship.
Yeah, it's got a bit of everything.
And the critics seem to love that DANDADAN isn't afraid to experiment and mix things up.
Totally. It's not just another rehash of the same old tropes.
It brings something new to the table, which is refreshing.
For sure. It's not easy to stand out in a genre like horror anime, but DANDADAN seems to have found that sweet spot.
It's familiar but fresh, all while delivering those stunning visuals and intense action sequences.
Not to mention the humor.
Right. The humor, I mean, it's like they've taken everything we love about anime and turned it up a notch.
I'd say so.
But at its core, it's still a story about two friends who learn to rely on each other and overcome their fears.
Exactly. That's what gives it that heart and makes you care about what happens to them.
And that message of courage and friendship, that's something everyone can relate to.
Definitely. It's a reminder that even when things get tough, you don't have to face them alone.
So for anyone out there who's still thinking about whether to watch DANDADAN, I think we can confidently say it's a show worth checking out.
Absolutely. It's a great mix of scares, laughs, heartwarming moments, and even some deeper themes.
Plus, the animation is top-notch.
Seriously, it's a visual treat.
Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive on DANDADAN.
We've covered a lot.
From the plot and characters to the animation and deeper themes.
And all the different genres it blends together.
I think it's safe to say that DANDADAN offers a pretty unique and exciting take on horror anime,
If you're looking for something fresh and engaging, I definitely recommend giving it a watch.
especially with Halloween just around the corner.
Perfect timing.
We'll be back next time with another deep dive into a new topic. Until then, happy watching. And be sure to let us know what you think of Dan to Dan.